What I want to talk about today is one group of people that can create unhealthy turnover in an organization, because they can create a lot of drama. They can make a culture very unpleasant to be around. And I call them toxic teammates. The average leader in America has a self-belief level of 2.7. That means we have behaviors that we don't believe in who we are. And when we're at 2.7, we always think that we're about to be found out. When we're at 2.7, we're afraid to let our guard down because we think that people will find out that we really don't belong. Does that make sense? And we learned that in order to be a healthy leader, you need to get your self-belief level, and there are ways to do it over time to get your self-belief level from a 2.7 to an 8. At 2.7, my internal narrative is, I'm not enough. At 8.0, my internal narrative is, I am enough, warts and all. Now, when I'm at 2.7, I don't feel safe, because of the messages that I'm giving myself all the time. And so when you begin to develop a culture that's an 8.0 culture, and here's what an 8.0 team culture looks like. They have high accountability. Accountability is not gotcha. Accountability is not, I'm going to make an example out of you. Accountability is, I'm going to embarrass you and make you an example in front of the team. How many of us have ever seen accountability like that? That's not accountability, that's power language. Using accountability, the term of accountability. True accountability, I love this definition, is helping another person to win by honoring their commitments to themselves and to other people. Number two, 8.0 cultures and teams not only have high accountability, but they have high transparency. People in high trust teams are treated like adults. In low trust teams, I'm afraid that you don't have the ability to handle discomfort. I'm afraid that you can't handle difficult information. And so I'm going to protect you by how I give you information, what information I choose to give you. When I give it to you, I'm going to soft shoe it around. I'm going to leave certain pieces out because somehow I think that I'm responsible for your emotional well-being. Now listen, when you are growing a team, it is not an issue of whether you're ever going to be uncomfortable. The issue is where the discomfort is going to be. If you are addressing issues in real time whenever you see a teammate faltering, or your team is not on purpose and they're getting caught up in other things, and you put that on the table with your team, is that always a moment of discomfort? There's always discomfort. But gang, if you don't deal with those issues, will there also be discomfort? And by not dealing with that discomfort, by kicking the can down the road, the discomfort will go from the above the table to under the table. And when it goes under the table, it now is addressing you. And when it addresses you, the discomfort is even greater. There are people in teams that when you begin to grow an 8.0 culture of transparency, accountability, empowerment, high trust, if you have someone who is exhibiting 2.7 behaviors, an 8.0 culture will separate them like this. There will be times that someone who is stuck in 2.7 will come into an 8.0 culture. And they will very quickly have light get shown on them. When that happens, you've got to address that. Because here's what happens. If you do not address 2.7 behavior that's going on by certain teammates in your team, and you don't address it, they will begin to create confusion in your team on who is leading the team. And if you're winking at their behavior, you're sending a message that you are rewarding that behavior by tolerating. What gets tolerated gets blessed. In healthy cultures that are really, really great, you have what is called sideways accountability. There's 3 forms of accountability. There's downward, which is traditional, and it is the least effective form of accountability for long-term change. You have upward, and by the way, you better be a leader that's an 8.0 when someone who's 3 layers beneath you comes to you and has a difficult conversation about something they're seeing in your leadership. Because if you're at 2.7, how will you respond when someone is coming to you and sharing concerns about something that they're seeing in you out of legitimate concern and they're doing it well? At 2.7, what are you thinking? Say that again? Defensive. And who are you? Do you know I'm the CEO and you're not? You're out of line. That's 2.7 thinking. 8.0 says this: I don't care who's talking to me. If they're bringing truth to me, I want to hear it. That's 8.0 thinking. Make sense? And by the way, that's the whole lean process that began to change leadership years ago, understanding that often the best ideas don't come from the top, they come closest to the floor. And if you do not have an environment where people closest to the floor can share their ideas and their concerns, you're dead in the water. So you better have a self-belief level that can handle that kind of feedback without making about your daggone mama. Make sense? It's just information. It's not about my mama. The most powerful form of accountability is what? It's sideways. Peer-to-peer accountability. And peer-to-peer accountability happens with a team when they all feel empowered, committed to each other's growth, and they feel responsible for the sake of the team to make sure that if there's any weak link behavior going on, they deal with it immediately. There are issues that right now are going on with your team that you are not having conversations about, and you are not being kind. You are not being kind because you're letting them hang in the wind, and you know they're hanging in the wind, but it's all about you and your discomfort, and you don't want to feel bad, so you're letting them hang in the wind for the sake of, I don't want to hurt their feelings. Great teams have those conversations. We have a process called Trust Accelerators. The Trust Accelerators are how you communicate to each other in these times. When you have misunderstandings, when you have conflict, when there's passion in the room over differing subjects, how are we going to behave with each other? How are we going to give information? How are we going to receive information in problem-solving, conflict, and misunderstanding? This is from a school district in Nebraska. These are the Trust Accelerators that they built. So let me just name them real quick. Operate with positive intent. That's a game changer. Operate with positive intent. You're always going to get what you look for. If you think they're out to get you and you're paranoid, you're going to see it every single time. Maintain confidentiality. Third, own the decision of the group. If your team makes a decision, even if there was robust discussion and you disagreed, once that team makes a decision, when you walk out that door, what's a healthy team do? We are rock step, and that doesn't mean you're a bunch of puppets. And if the team says we're going to the right, and once we decide that, we go to the right. We don't send emails to each other afterwards saying, I'm really questioning how we did that as a team. You see, that's part of what toxic team leaders do. They don't keep the meeting in the meeting. They don't put things on the table. They have passive-aggressive communication. They use electronic emails and texts and things to have conversations outside of the table. Oh, by the way, if you are not having an above-the-table conversation and you're having an under-the-table conversation, the under the conversation every single time will be in contrast to what you've committed to as a culture. Every single time. Toxic leaders have under-the-table conversations. They build coalitions. They build little teams within the teams. And they have a little culture that's different than everybody else. And everyone else can feel it, but you just can't put your hands on it. And then when that person leaves, guess what? All of a sudden you see 3 or 4 people leave with them. You see, that's what coalition building does. Healthy teams, when they start seeing that, what do they do immediately? Hey, we got a problem. Let's jump on this side. We got to jump on this. Another one they came up with is deliver the mail to the right address. You know what drama is? How many of us have ever dealt with drama here? I'm shocked. You know what drama is? I love it. You've heard me say it. It's getting 5 people involved in a 2-person problem. You know how you get people out of the drama? If I have an issue with Abby, who do I go to? I go to Abby. And if I go to Maggie about Abby, because I have no intention of going to Abby, but I want to feel better. And I'm going to feel better by backing up my dump truck onto Abby and going beep, 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 beep. And all that smelly stuff just dumps the whole dump truck on Maggie. And boy, do I feel better. Thank you, Maggie. And when I leave Maggie, I feel all better, and she smells because of my stuff. And if Abby takes that, she's part of the problem. Here's another one, solution-focused discussions. We're not going to get into blame. We're not going to talk about here he did it again. We got a problem. And instead of doing this team said, let me tell you how our team's going to operate. We're going to start doing this. We're not going to focus on every moment that we spend blaming on who did what. We are using wasted energy. And we only have so much time, so let's get at it. Here's another one, honest communication. Say it, put it on the table. Don't dance around it. Be kind, direct, and respectful, but say what needs to be said. Have the courage to be an adult. If your chronic behavior is to go to defensiveness when someone's giving your information, you have already shown you are in trouble as a leader. Because you've not only hit your ceiling, you're already in a point of decline. You cannot grow and be defensive at the same time. I'll give you a little secret. When we evaluate teams, one of the things we do is we go in and we watch their team meetings. If they listen long, that's a really good characteristic. If they're competing each other for time, who's going to have the best idea, who's right, who's wrong, and they're talking over each other, that's a sign every single time we got a problem. With me? If you want to deal with toxic teammates, build these. This is a leader's best friend. It's a game changer. It's all about the team. It's not about prima donnas. It's all about the principles. It's not about personalities. Has this been helpful? Good job.